All right. Thank you so much for coming on. And my usual question, besides introduce yourself, is what made you pick this particular recipe?
I'm Lynette Compton, and I met Orr in Colombia, South America. We have a connection through Rotary International, and very proud of that. And it's just been fun to learn more about Orr, and my goodness, all the things that he's involved in. And when he was talking about this cooking show and wanting to cook simple food, I thought that was still a bar too high for me. But with his prodding, I should say, well, here we are today. So that's me. I am in a family of surrounded by people who are very good cooks. And actually, my nephew is a real chef and has his own business. But somehow the genes just passed by me. So to kind of leads me.
Maybe you're like my mom. My mom was, I think, irregularly for being a horrible cook because it made me want to learn to cook. Now she's good now, but it took her 20 years of experimenting on us kids for us to decide.
Yeah,
but
they
I'm
might
the
have
only
known
one
each
out
other.
of all of them that really delved into cooking. But
Cooking.
everybody in my family, everybody cooks regularly, but
Yeah,
I
my
guess
mom
I
started out with
experiment.
not even understanding what a pilot light was and how to start it. To she, we have a family cookbook, and she was the force behind that. So
Oh wow.
yeah, she she figured it out. But she would always try new recipes on guests. And we're from the South, New Orleans, and if it didn't work out, she would just say it's an old Southern recipe. So I still do that because I'm pretty much, I cook a recipe one time, I'm challenged with it, and then I throw it away and I just do whatever I want to do. But this particular recipe is very different. So because of my I don't mind grocery shopping. I don't mind the cleanup. I really actually don't mind the cooking. I just don't do it well. But what I really cannot stand is trying to figure out what to cook, because everything, for the most part, for me, sounds incredibly complicated, and I'm not willing to put in the time.
You
So
have
it
just
was
covered the premise of our show, which is try to make things simple and show the mistakes that things don't magically, you put one thing in the oven and the other one magically comes out fully cooked.
not going to happen here, right? So, some of you may know about meal trains. So if someone is sick in your neighborhood or whatnot, someone can start a meal train. So you sign up to do meals. And I don't have a go-to, or a family member passes away and or a friend, and and you want to bring a dish, and where's that go-to recipe? Well, it was Christmas. For me, Christmas card, it was 2021. And on the back of this card from a friend was a recipe for lasagna soup. And I thought, that sounds good. And what a unique idea to put it, because soup is warm and really makes you feel
so
friendship.
is lasagna, yeah.
Yeah. So I tried it. I, again, never follow recipe correctly. But it was still good enough to do again. And this is probably today, maybe my 9th or 10th time to do it, because it is now my go-to recipe. When I said that I don't do it the way that the recipes say, a very close relative lovingly told me one time, well, you don't know how to read a recipe. And I don't. So I can read it over and over
I
and
use
over.
recipe as inspiration to create.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I come across something and that makes me interested in it. But if you don't have all the ingredients, well, you swap things out.
So my husband, on any project that he has, he says, it takes three trips to the hardware store to do a project, right? So for me, it's 3 trips to the grocery store. is to do a recipe, or I just don't and wing it with what I have. And this morning I realized, even though I had checked everything off of what I had and therefore what I needed, I still missed an item. So I went back this morning, but whatever.
So what
Another
are
thing,
some things on here that you have to make this possible?
well, since it's called lasagna soup, they say, you would think you have to have lasagna noodles, but my husband and I don't eat a lot of carbs. So frankly, if I'm fixing it for myself, we don't even do the noodles. But if I'm fixing it for somebody else, yes. So the other main item that you have to have, they call for ground beef. And we always have venison. So we use ground venison, and that's what I'm using today.
There you go.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
happen to have a gift of lamb, so I was considering using lamb.
Ah,
But
nice idea.
otherwise, some kind of tomato something and some kind of vegetables.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
So this
uh-oh,
recipe,
you broke the rule. You started cooking.
well, yes.
Just like-
Okay, I'll turn it down a little bit. Do you
Oh,
want to know
and
the ingredients first? Kind of read through,
yeah,
or?
just go over the ingredients and then we'll talk about substitutes and what is required. Yeah, go for it.
All right, so one small onion. I mean, let's just start at the top, right? We just moved, so I changed grocery stores, and the previous grocery store only had one size onion, large. So that's what I used. And what the heck, it happens, and it works out okay. But I was able to find at this new grocery store a small onion. So we're gonna go with this one as being the proper size. And then it wants a large carrot.
I
Well,
always thought it was funny recipes. They always say onion or egg, but never specify this size. Rarely.
yes. Can you maybe just go by weight? I don't know. Would that be easier? Hard to say. But then they wanted a large carrot. And unfortunately, in this store, all they had were bagged carrots. We didn't have anything that I could just really pick from. So I'll probably do 1.5 or maybe 2, just because vegetables are fabulous, right? So
He's similar, yeah.
yeah, I think I'll go ahead and do these 2 guys. And 1 zucchini, so zoops are good. 3 cloves of garlic. So let's get out the dictionary. A clove versus a toe. This is a head of garlic, right? Yeah. So you peel it out, and I'm just gonna pick 3 of the large size because I like garlic.
Can you ever have enough?
No. Mm-mm. Oh, used to be part of, quote unquote gourmet group, right? And one year we decided our theme would be one ingredient that you carried through from appetizer to dessert. And I went for garlic. And I had to bring in my nephew, who's the chef, to say, now, what do I do with how do I do dessert with garlic?
Oh, have you ever had garlic jam? Oh my goodness. Roasted
No,
garlic jam.
have not. That sounds luscious.
You can just buy it in a jar.
You can make garlic cookies. They're awesome.
Garlic
Oh,
cookies, okay.
and send some recipes. I'm sensing. Yes.
So
So let's see. The next ingredient is going to be olive oil, and then kosher salt. Sometimes I have kosher salt, sometimes I don't. Today I don't, so we're going to use regular salt. I'm a salt fiend, so later, when I eat it, I will probably even add more salt.
now you mentioned zucchini and carrot. Have you ever done it with any other vegetables?
Um, yes, later in the recipe, it calls for basil, and I typically don't have basil around, so spinach and kale. And today I'm using kale and a little bit of basil because I have some dried stuff. What the heck, throw it in there. Yeah.
I'll have fresh basil, I don't know, a couple months of the year, and then otherwise it's super expensive to buy, so I don't tend to use fresh basil.
Yeah, that's another one where I'm not, it's unless the farmer market is going. I mean, I'm not gonna find it fresh. So, and then I also like to do my little shout out to our local composting place. So it's even great. I mean, it used to be in the house that we lived in, you could get curbside composting, and now that I'm in an apartment, we just do a bin swap out.
Curbside composting, I've heard they do that in Germany, but I didn't know they did that in the US anywhere.
Yeah, in Lenexa. Well, I guess they'll do it. Oh, the Johnson County area here in Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Let's see. So going back down the list, tomato paste. So that's another one that's kind of, oh, I have issues with, you know. So one of the things that, I don't know, my mom said that for her, if she's cooking with a product, she'll just go for the store brand. But if it's the main ingredient, something that, you know, you're showcasing, then she'll buy the best brand or most expensive brand, or I don't know how you tell. But with this recipe and a lot of them, well, I can only speak for this recipe. I certainly don't need this whole pan of tomato paste. So I will freeze what's left, but then I came up with an idea I'm going to try today is whatever is left over in this can, I'm going to spoon it out onto saran wrap or plastic wrap, and in tablespoon lumps.
So like individuals, well, there you go.
Yeah, and freeze it. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I do.
I buy tomato paste in a tube because I do recipes that only requires 1 tablespoon. So I have a tube of tomato paste in my fridge.
That's how they do it in Europe. Yeah, they come in tubes.
Did you get that like at a camping store? Where did you get it in a tube?
No, I got it from Whole Foods, I think.
Oh, okay. See, that's another problem with me and cooking is, you know, if I don't like the store, or I don't like the.
I've never seen tubed, except in Europe for tomatoes, but I've seen tubes for like different herbs.
I
Oh yeah,
also
they've got
have
them
a,
in the stores in
I
Minnesota.
also
They do.
have a tube of Japanese wasabi from Japan.
Yep, me too.
So, because how much, you know, I don't want to buy a giant jar of wasabi that it's gonna, you know, I'm never gonna use. But in the tube, I can just squeeze out a little dab.
Yep, here's mine. Amore tomato paste.
Well, we
Anything.
love Oriental food, Japanese food especially, and so we just bring the extra wasabi home and throw that in the freezer as well. Yeah. You know, and somebody, a neighbor told me one time about if she's got some fresh herbs and she knows she's not going to use them all, then she will chop them up and soften up butter, maybe a stick of butter, and then blends it together, shapes it into a roll, and then freezes that roll so that when she needs the herb the next time, because usually you need butter as well, she just chops off that much and throws it in the saucepan. That's kind
No,
of
I
fun
do
too.
that, but with olive oil or just, you know, any kind of oil. So
Okay.
one thing I do with all these bits is
Yeah.
I put them in a freezer bag and I save them. So this actually calls for a bunch of veggie broth. I emptied my bag
Right.
earlier, and in my pot right here, put it under the camera. See if I can make everything fall. I've got, so like the garlic skin, the onion skins, the stems of my greens. I put it in here, so I just let it slow cook for like an hour this morning, and you can see.
Yeah, that is
The
beautiful.
mushroom stems that were like too chewy to eat. Mostly this is the green stems, onion and garlic skin.
You could also
you
do that
the
in
broth,
your,
look, it's, I mean, it's
you could
veggie
do it in
broth.
your
It's,
Instapot,
I could, yeah.
so you don't have to kind of watch it.
Hey, Fred, do you get paid by Instapot to say that during every?
Yeah, I get a check every month.
There you go.
I actually met a TikToker who does a cooking show, and he says he mentions something every week trying to get sponsorships. It
Ah,
hasn't worked yet, but
huh. Okay.
Well, or used to not say the word. He would just say electronic pressure cooker.
yeah, I was trying to. I mean, they're bankrupt now, you know.
Yeah, well, it's like Kleenex. You get a name for something and it gets
Right?
attached to it.
There's tons of
Right.
different, knockoff brands now.
Okay, so or when you were chopping your carrot, here's another one. How thick are you making it?
Like the carrot ends. Basically, anything I feel like you can eat raw. Well,
I think she meant size of carrot for the dish.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I cut them about a quarter thick, but then I'll also cut them in half. I don't quarter these though. If they're the big ones. Because I think, soup always gets better with age, and I don't want things to break down too much before the third heating for leftovers.
Now I noticed that unlike regular lasagna, there's no ricotta or,
Mm-mm.
and I was thinking, just like you do with other soups, you could serve it with a little dollop of like yogurt or sour cream or ricotta if you really wanted that creamy addition, but
Yeah, maybe
Also-
in place of the
probably not necessary.
mozzarella, because it does call for mozzarella on the top of it at the end when you
Oh,
serve.
okay.
Yeah, but that would be a really great idea. Yeah, and if I'm giving this to someone, like I said, at a for them to keep, not to eat with them, I don't ever put the cheese in with it. Yeah,
It's just the garnish afterwards. So
exactly.
let's see. We're cutting the garlic, or cutting everything up, I guess.
Right.
Probably
And
could
then,
start warming up my pan. I always forget.
well, and I started with kind of browning the meat, because here's another kind of challenge I have with recipes is I need everything to be in the exact order I should do them.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, number 5, it says add the ground beef, but it never, told me get it cooked first so that it's ready to add. Stupid stuff, I know, but that's me. So that's
So-
why.
The first thing is grounding the
So
meat.
just so you guys know, I'm skipping the ground beef because I want to make this so my daughter, who doesn't eat meat, can eat it. So you just beef up on the, pardon the pun, beef up on the vegetables, maybe?
Maybe use tofu. Uh-huh.
Or
Huh?
you would want some kind of unami, so probably the best would be to add mushrooms.
Mushrooms. Okay, I've got the onion, the carrot. I need to chop up my zoot.
So I think even Or talked about you can also
These are
get mushroom
burgers, never
powder
mind.
and make a broth with mushroom broth for vegans.
Yeah, I made the kind of broth last night that Or talks about just from scraps, and I had a lot of mushrooms that I throw in paper bags, because worst case scenario, they totally dehydrate in the fridge, floating around in bags, and at any stage you can use them. They look a little rough, but the flavor's great when they start drying. So my broth has a lot of mushroom flavor.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, probably you don't have to add anything then, because
So I can just cook up the ground beef and maybe put it
And
in
you
the
could
bowl.
caramelize the onions a little extra so you get a little more smoky flavor, right?
So are you cooking the vegetables yet? And do they get browned before it goes into the, before the soup action?
Yeah, so once we get the vegetables chopped and put together, then they'll go into the soup pot with oil, and then you brown it for a while. And then you add the meat and broth.
And I don't mean to jump ahead, but out of curiosity, do we need to be boiling water to cook the pasta first, or does it get cooked in the soup?
It gets cooked in the soup.
Perfect.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry to jump ahead, but you know, I'm always lagging behind as it is.
Okay.
Lynette, I don't know if you remember, while I was in Colombia, I hopped on the cooking show and Lulu was the cook at that. It was just for a couple minutes because it didn't have phenomenal cell service in that area. So I didn't stay on for the whole show, but.
Nice. Okay, probably everybody has their own method for smashing, crushing, garlic and chopping and all that kind of fun stuff. I just take the side of my blade, put it over it, and pop down on it to smash it.
I do that too, but one day when I did it, my Apple Watch went off and said, "Did you take a fall? Should we call emergency?"
Oh, that's funny.
No, just cooking.
I've heard that the center of the garlic, each toe, the kind of, where it's greening for another one, can cause the taste to be bitter. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that.
I usually don't use, if it starts turning green, I cut that away,
Yeah.
usually. But not because of it, knowing any reason other than just, I don't know.
Well, and another thing that I didn't do it today, but sometimes if you'll take the clove of garlic and you put it in the microwave for like 3 or 4 seconds, no more than that, then the peel comes away a lot easier.
Never heard that trick.
It's true, but it can be a little hot.
One I always did is you put it in a metal bowl, well, the best is if you just put it in a glass jar, put the lid on it, and just give it a vigorous shake. You're doing a lot.
Okay. All right, so I'm mincing garlic.
I'm doing a whole head.
Okay. I think we're good
So
there.
I'm browning the meat. And am I gonna take the meat out and then fry the rest of it, or just do it all at the same time?
Oh, say that again. Are you going to?
Do I take the meat out once it's browned and cooked it in there, or do I just cook everything in the same pot?
I need to, you will need to use a soup pot because of all the broth.
Okay.
So it won't go back into the,
You're gonna saute your vegetables in the big pot.
yes, yeah. All right, so I did number 1, chop the onion, carrots, and zucchini and add to a medium bowl. Here's my medium bowl. Then I did number 2, smash and peel the garlic, mince and add to the vegetables. So now I'm ready for number 3, heat the oil in the large pan over medium-high heat. And that's when we're going to add the bowl of vegetables and garlic plus a teaspoon of salt. So got my big pan here and got Olive oil.
So I'll have to do it a little bit out of order because I've got all my broth in the soup pan.
Okay.
But I think
Well,
what I'll
you
do
just
is
keep
I'll put
going?
this. I wonder if we can fry the veggies and stuff with the meat.
I think the meat will overcook if you do that.
Okay, so I'll take the meat out and then cook it in that pan.
Yeah, I always think they don't tell you to do it with the meat just because if there's grease you want to, get rid of first. Otherwise, I think you can do it in the same pot. Okay, medium high. So the other thing that I usually need with when I'm doing a recipe is a pencil or something to mark where I was, because I always tend to, I lose my place easily. And then when your hands are all mushy, kind of a challenge.
I don't know how often I've gone through and forgot one thing and then I'm like, oh, can't go. A lot of times you can't go back.
I know, exactly. Yeah, and I'm a really cheap person, so the concept of making something ahead of time, practicing to get it right for guests or friends and all, it's like, no, they get what they get. It's terrible.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I try to do is if I'm going to a potluck to not try to make a new recipe.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
otherwise, it's like, what do I have? They have a lot of websites where you can put a list of what you have and it'll spit out a recipe.
Yeah,
Almost like recipe roulette.
I'm gonna see if I
Spin the
can get
wheel and
volume higher here. The pan going, I can't hear as well. So,
all right, so start frying the garlic and onions or just the onions?
Looks like she's got all the vegetables in the pot.
Temperature.
and then you're going to stir occasionally for about 10 minutes for the vegetables to soften up.
Now you're not putting the greens in yet. That's it.
No,
In the
not yet. One time I was cooking something else and it just didn't really have enough flavor. And I realized I had some beef, what is it? Consomme, or hold on, what's it called? Oh, it's thick canned bouillon to give it more of a rich flavor, and that was good. Okay, since the next item is going to be to put the meat in and the tomato paste, I'm gonna open up my can of tomato paste.
If anybody's really paying attention, I'm doing a double recipe.
Ah, okay.
Except the meat, I just did a single. Everything else I'm double.
Well, I can't taste the difference anymore, but knowing that sometimes other people can, if I am making it for someone else, I will typically actually use ground beef instead of the venison, just in case, Anyway, I have an old-fashioned can opener that gets pretty hard to turn from time to time. So then I'll just spray it with the olive oil or vegetable oil or something.
Did you add your salt yet do you add that to the beef or the vegetables or?
Yeah, Lulu, I just put it in the pot with the vegetables that are cooking
Okay.
now. Mhm.
But only the salt, not any of the other herbs yet.
No,
And I'm personally not putting the garlic in just yet, you know, because I like my vegetables pretty well done. So I'm gonna
I
give
got
them
enough garlic that I can do the
both.
caramelized garlic and some fresh.
Yeah, I'm always afraid of burning it though.
That's true.
Woo, this is strong. Smells good though. Wish you could smell it.
Oh, yeah,
I
the
feel
whole
like I
kitchen
should
smells
throw
like it.
something else in there, but I don't have zucchini either. I have spinach.
Have
I should go
any
scavenging.
I think it takes
veggies?
some hearty vegetables like the
I
carrots
just
and
I just
zucchini.
cut my thumb on the lid. I've never had that happen.
Oh no.
Look at that, just a little bit.
You want us to call 911?
Oh, I was just like, I've never had that happen. It was a first for something.
That's
I
why I
think
like,
about. Go ahead.
All right, luckily this is just for me because we don't want the secret ingredient to be human blood.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
You can invite your vampire friends over.
Now, I've never tried a cold soup, but I do like those too. But this, even in the summertime, even warm soup feels right.
How high of a temperature are you cooking this on?
So it said medium high, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. So I started off at about a 7, and then I turned it down to a 6 because with the 10 minutes, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to probably char the outside a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this in the pot that we are for sure making the soup in, correct?
Yes. I mean, I am. Yep.
I had already made the broth in this big pot, so I'm doing a separate one.
So when we downsized from the house to the apartment, I had to be pretty ruthless about what we were taking with us. And surprisingly, most all of the cooking items came with us. And here I am saying I don't like to cook.
Now, do you think you don't like to cook, or you just don't feel like you're any good at it? What do you think more so?
Well, I don't mind cooking as long as everybody's okay with the taste being a surprise, because I have no idea how it'll end up.
Right.
Some people, have the ability to say, well, these kind of flavors go together, or let's try a little bit of this. I don't have that.
you can't satisfy everybody's taste. You just have to cook and they'll eat it or they won't eat it.
Ultimately, we bought my mom a sign that said "Mom's Kitchen." Menu 1, take it, 2, leave it. And if we left it, we had to cook our own food.
There you go. But I love cleanup. Again, I don't mind being in the kitchen or around it, or being at the sous chef. That's fine. It's just the pressure of knowing it really should taste good when you're done. Okay, so I've got about 4 more minutes on the vegetables sauteed in the oil, the olive oil.
There's actually a guy on TikTok that he shows his mom's recipe, and everything she makes, she thinks is gourmet, but it's very, very bland. Like she'll do chicken breasts with no flavor on it. It's just like, and then she'll be like, she cooks the chicken breast and then she'll put a slice of mozzarella on it and she calls it chicken parmesan. but there's like no flavors on it at all. And it's very popular. He makes fun of her, but he gets a home cooked meal every meal.
Well, I mentioned about the family cookbook, and there's an entry about vegetable soup where my mom and my first son-in-law, my brother-in-law, always jabbed at each other that their vegetable soup was the best. But my entry is I would eat Campbell's vegetarian vegetable cold straight out of the can. And I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I love salt.
I mean, that's how I feel. A lot of people absolutely love like the canned tomato soup. And for me, it's too sweet.
Mm.
I grew up in the restaurant business and I always knew what dinner was because it was the special leftover special at the restaurant.
It was just whatever was left over made into a soup.
Well, no, well, that's what it became dinner. The soup was, I told the story of my dad makes soup 5 days a week, and on Fridays he would put it all together and call it pepper pot soup, and everybody loved it. He'd throw all the soups from the previous 5 days into one pot.
Isn't that like Brazilian feijoada? It's just like whatever you had left over through the week.
Yeah.
So good.
People would ask,
Throw
"Oh,
some
this is
beans in
wonderful.
there.
Can you give us this recipe?" He said, "No, it's a family secret. I can't tell you."
So my mom would do the same thing, except she'd make like, I don't know, maybe a meatloaf, but it would just be leftovers. You know, it'd be like a veggie burger made into I don't know, about 2 inches thick on a cookie pan. But she just
Ah.
mix flour with it and she'd make a giant veggie burger, basically.
Mom would make mystery meatloaf, and in the center you might have a hard-boiled egg, you might have a dill pickle, you know.
Yeah, pasta. It's just whatever was left over from. So it'd be like all week we'd have food, then Sunday we'd have the soup, or Saturday, and then Sunday she'd make it into a thin bread. And then Monday you usually had that as like a veggie burger.
All right, we're getting ready to
We
move
got
into
about a
the-
half a quarter bag of bits for the next veggie broth.
We're good. Okay, you guys ready to go to the next step?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to add the meat. We're going to add the meat, the tomato paste, and oregano.
You know. I don't think I have straight up oregano. I have like the Italian mix. Let's see.
So a teaspoon of the dried oregano, and you put in the other teaspoon of salt. And my sister taught me that when you're using some dried herbs to, you know, roll them, to crunch them, and kind of wake up some of the flavor back in them.
Try to break the leaves as much as possible. Let's see, you put the meat in.
Yeah, and I'm gonna turn the fire down and pull it off just a little bit to kind of mix them up. And it says to maybe cook about 5 more minutes, but that's a little long, but again, we're trying to get the vegetables in the right place.
Now, how much tomato paste?
2 tablespoons. And break up any of the meat clumps you might have. I didn't think about the camera not seeing the pot so well, but that's what I have so far. I'm gonna leave that there for about 3 minutes. It's already been going a couple. And then next we're going to add the diced tomatoes and the vegetable broth. So I'm gonna wait just another minute or two before I do that.
So in my exploration of how to make a spaghetti sauce or tomato sauce for pasta, you know, traditional Italian, I came across one that used just a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. And one of the steps that rocked the flavor was literally browning the paste like we're doing now. Cooking the paste.
Okay.
So that's common in African curry. They cook the tomato until it has no tomato taste. That's the base for African curry. And
But
you
I
don't
tell
need
you,
much meat
that was
then because it's all the tomatoes is the umami.
yeah, that spaghetti sauce was some of the best. And so convenient because you didn't have to have real heavy cans in your pantry. It saved on shopping, and it was an exquisite taste. And I feel like this is real reminiscence of making homemade spaghetti sauce.
I had a friend in high school. Her family was Italian. Went over to her house one time, and it was cold outside, but all the windows in the kitchen were steamed up from her grandma making the tomato sauce and everything all day long. It's like this has got to be a commercial because I didn't think it could really happen this way. Pretty
That's
cool.
slow cooked all day.
Yeah.
That's from fresh tomatoes. That is a process.
There.
That's a lot of work.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
lot of wine. I mean,
Can
time.
we talk about it? Okay.
Just like
Oh, another challenge, I don't know if any of you are the same way. When I cook, I'm impatient. So it's hard to wait until I have to do the next thing. Sometimes I'll just have a book and read that while I'm cooking.
yeah, I always have to remember to set a timer though, because I will completely forget.
Yeah.
I can be
This way-
sitting in the kitchen reading a book and still forget. It's right there.
Okay, here we go with the that 15-ounce can of the diced tomatoes.
Oh, I gotta have. I can throw them. I could just eat this now. I don't have to add any broth.
Well, there you go. Oh, my it's not coming off. Always makes me feel better at this recipe when I finally get some other juice in there.
You're adding the broth now, so I'll have to swap it.
Yeah, we'll use my vegetable stock.
I'm a few minutes behind you. This has just a couple more minutes. So mine is minus the beef. Mine's a
I would say
vegetarian.
add a little extra tomatoes.
Yeah, I have a 28-ounce can and I strained it.
Or
So
tomato
I need to put
paste,
the juice
and that
in.
really cuts through, not me. But you have the mushrooms too, so both of those give a lot of them.
I kind of wish I had the actual mushrooms.
You put, if you cook a lot of vegetarian, I recommend getting the mushroom powder for making soups.
Yeah.
That stuff
Mushroom
is
powder.
phenomenal.
Never seen that, heard that before. Interesting. Why not?
Oh, and when I was making that mushroom soup, that time sat in while you were out of town, I incorporated just canned mushrooms because my first exposure to mushroom soup was Campbell's. And so, that's canned mushroom soup. So that flavor and texture doesn't bother me. And so it was kind of cool putting it into the actual homemade soup. So I guess in a pinch, all these canned things are doable.
Okay, so the color is looking beautiful. And now we need to, Lulu, I know you're a little bit coming up on this one, but we'll turn the heat up to high because we actually want it to boil, but we're not going to cover it.
Now,
So this is-
technically,
Yeah,
you could just eat this now. You wouldn't have to add the pasta.
no, like I said, I don't if it's for my husband and I, but this is the most exciting and fun part. So the next part is you take the, you get a clean bag, plastic bag is what I have for today. And your lasagna dry noodles, and count out 8 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then you put them in the,
Is that a half a package maybe?
no, sadly it's not, because again, we don't eat it, so.
Is it more or less? I'm just trying to figure out, is it more or less a pound or a half pound?
I would say that it is a half pound, so it's basically half a package, and my package is a pound, so let's just say it's a half pound. So you
Well,
kind
I'm
of
doing
break,
a double because I
Yeah.
want to
you're doing a double.
not,
So you
not
can break
wasted.
these up and put them in the bag, but then after that, the shards go everywhere. So that's why they say, put in the bag and then take a mallet and beat the bag to make them into smaller pieces.
So you're
You don't-
bringing the broth to a rolling boil first, right?
Yes, so we're waiting for it to do that. And while we're waiting, we're breaking up our noodles. And
Now, have you
actually,
ever made it with other noodles? You don't make it with noodles at all.
no, I haven't. I mean, you could, I guess, yeah, you could do whatever you wanted.
But the fun part of this is calling it lasagna soup.
Yeah, when is it vegetable soup and when is it lasagna soup, right? Or, yeah.
Now, did you buy that mallet
Excited.
just for this? That's a serious mallet.
No, this is one that has been around for forever. It was my dad's, and it's just like, it's great.
Let's see, I've got
All right. So that's good enough because
rolling
you
pin.
can get
That might
carried
work.
away and your noodles can come flying through your bag, so. And I'm gonna pick up the ones off the floor now. Don't forget them before my dog gets home.
How well are you breaking them up? I guess bite size.
Not, yeah, don't get it into teeny pieces, just, kind of like 1/4 inches or half, I mean, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Wash my hands real quick.
I finally got to beat something with my wooden rolling pin.
Yay. Okay, mine is starting a low boil right now. So it just says bring the soup to a boil. It doesn't say fast, slow, medium. I'm gonna let it go just a bit longer. And then what we'll do is, step number 9 is you add the noodles, reduce the heat to medium low, and then simmer 18 to 22 minutes or until the noodles are tender. And really, that's the right amount of time.
I'm gonna ask everybody on the show, on your pasta, how often do you pull the box out of the trash to read how many minutes you're supposed to cook it? I was just like,
All the time. But I
well,
always
this
go
one
by
actually
taste.
says 8 to 10 minutes.
I usually go by taste.
That's at a rapid boil.
Well, again, I like to think about soup is going to last it typically a long time, so it has to be reheated multiple times, and this kind of keeps things from maybe getting too mushy or lackluster.
Now I've got a lot
I'm
of
making that up.
greens. Do I want to add that? I mean, this collard green takes about 10 minutes to cook. These are pretty chewy.
So let's talk about
Add
that.
it in with the pasta
Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do.
or a few minutes after. What kind of greens or?
These are collard greens, so they hold their texture very well.
Or yeah, make them tiny.
I like using them instead of tortilla for a wrap because I'm, gluten free.
Do you do it raw?
Yeah, I'll take the center, I don't know, twig or whatever you call it, off, and then I can put stuff in here and just like make it into a wrap and eat it.
We do that romaine lettuce as well. When you put the noodles in, I mean, again, you don't turn it down as it says, and then set your timer. And you don't need to cover it, although I think in the past I have. So.
But you don't turn it down, you keep it at a boil?
No, you turn it down to medium low so it simmers.
Got it.
So we were talking about the greens. Yeah, I said I didn't have any basil, so I decided to get the curly kale because also, like you said, or this is it'll stand up, it's hearty. But I've also added spinach. Like when I don't add it until I'm actually heating it up to eat. If I wasn't going to eat it right now, I would do that because spinach.
Otherwise, it just disappears.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of depends. Said I've never tried it with the basil as the recipe calls for. But I do have some dried basil. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw a little bit, I don't know how much is still in here, probably about a half a teaspoon. And I think I'm just going to throw that in just for the heck of it.
As we say, to your heart's content.
Yeah. Oh,
So is when the fresh basil says to use, when your recipe says to use fresh basil, when are you adding it?
not until after the noodles have softened.
Okay, so right before you serve
Probably
it.
right
That's
before
where,
you serve it.
so I'm gonna put spinach and basil in at that time, because I do have a plant.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It'll be my first eating of it.
Ah.
We're gonna have a long relationship through the summer.
Some friends bought one of those, what are they called? Is it hydroponics where it's on a pole and it has its own light and all these different lettuces
It
grow
just
off of
grows
it.
in water, yeah.
Yeah, and so they harvested their first salad. It was sent a picture. It was beautiful. Kind of nice when you live in the city and you don't do very good with remembering to water your herbs and things like that. So what I'm going to do is just like you did, or just kind of tear apart the kale, but I'll probably go in smaller pieces. Since with a soup, it's got to fit on your spoon, and be sure they're kind of bite-sizey.
I think my favorite part was smashing the pasta in the bag.
I know.
It just like, and as everybody always yells at me, I filled the pot.
Oh my gosh. Now you really have to watch that it doesn't boil over.
Yeah.
Is there room for your spoon to even stir?
Yeah, but part of it is the pasta will soak up some of the juice. Actually, I want to taste the soup right now before.
Don't burn your tongue
I'll let,
or the roof of your mouth.
that looks really nice and rich.
Yeah, if you were following the recipe, after the noodles are tender, you would mince 8 basil leaves. So that's quite a bit of flavor.
And you
'Cause
said
that's
you
one
you
thing, the
serve
kale
it
and
with
the
a
spinach
little
won't
cheese
add
on it.
flavor. Yeah, yeah. But I liked your idea of maybe you could use other cheeses, something different.
Little Parmesan Romano, or this right here was an Italian mix.
Ah. I think you can go wrong with cheese.
You could always, have the Parmesan and the individual grater and just have everybody pass it around and do their own.
Oh, that's fancy.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's lazy.
No, having fresh parm to grate on there. I buy the cheap stuff that's got 50% powdered newspaper in it.
Powdered newspaper, is that a joke?
Nope. If you read it, it says it's got cellulose, which is powdered wood.
Okay.
Okay,
Well-
now I know why I do
To
my
prevent
fresh
caking,
parm.
they add it.
Yeah, I decided to go ahead and dump in the kale again. It doesn't really add any flavor so much that I would notice, and because it's tough, that will help it a little bit. Otherwise, we're just waiting for the heat to do its thing.
I'm gonna clean the kitchen.
I just love the colors. I don't know how well you can see that.
I mean, that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, you eat first with your eyes, and like, look at all that. It's got.
I like all this talk about mushrooms. That would, you could steer, I guess, as far away from the lasagna concept as you want.
Oh yeah, I've got some canned mushrooms. I could add that.
So for years, since my daughter's been vegetarian, I've always had the half meat and then the other half was vegetarian, and it didn't matter, whatever vegetables. Sometimes I would do eggplant, zucchini, spinach,
Oh, eggplant.
Broccoli's a nice thing because it stays pretty in the layers. And then so the vegetables would just be the layer where I would put the meat.
Mm.
And I do just one layer of meat on my lasagna. And the sauce does not have meat in it. So, all the layers, because there's a cheese layer, there's a vegetable or meat layer, and Yeah.
It makes me think about cakes when you do half chocolate, half vanilla. It's like, okay, half vegetarian, half meat. Would it stay?
Same with pizza, when
Yeah.
if you want to, you always get half and half. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
I was always
The
eating
soup is
the
good.
slice between the vegetarian and the meat.
Okay, or now you got me curious. I'm going to.
I mean, the
pull off-
longer you cook it, the more flavor you
Mm.
get, I think. But
Smells good too.
oh man. Mhm.
Oh yeah. Again, I probably was a little heavy-handed on the salt. But
We're finishing in time for me to go to my Rotary Club street cleanup.
okay. All right. So any other questions or thoughts on the recipe? Because it's pretty much done. It's ready to look beautiful in a bowl.
Now, do you have a preferred? Do you serve it with anything?
Oh, as much as I'd like to serve it with really hard bread, no, just eat the soup.
And
Yeah.
a salad. You can make just a simple green salad with oil and vinegar.
You could, but that would like over the top vegetable it for me in one night. I can only do so much health.
But your
Yeah.
go-to is when you serve it, you sprinkle a little cheese on top of it when you serve it.
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, or this has been fun. Thank you very much for inviting me to share with the group.
But yeah, you could do it like you would do with a cream soup. You could put a little ricotta or cottage cheese or sour cream on top instead of cheese also. But
And that
That
would probably
complicates
even look prettier than just sprinkling the mozzarella on top.
oh,
I mean, and they call it the
Americans, we put cheese on everything. Don't worry.
You
Yeah.
can
If
also
I'll probably
you
put the
could,
cheese and some sour cream.
Ooh,
you could
yeah.
also do croutons. You could do croutons also.
That would be down that bread path, yes. I wonder if you do like a little disc of the mozzarella, stick that in the center, and then put a little bit of the basil right on top of that as well.
Or you could shove it in the oven and brown it a little bit, and have
Now you're complicating things.
No, just under the broiler, in a dish. So it's kind of like a
French
just a-
onion.
Yeah, but brown cheese, brown mozzarella has a great flavor.
And I think then you're getting more towards lasagna, actually.
But I mean, it's still a soup. It's going to be real liquidy
The
underneath.
one thing I've came across when we were in Colombia is they had the toasted lentils on salad and on top of soup instead of croutons. And I fell in love because I'm gluten sensitive and I absolutely love lentils. So
Mhm.
I'm going to
Yeah.
try to do that in a future cooking show, I think. So,
I'll be there.
all right. Anybody have any final questions? Don't forget to watch your pasta so it doesn't, I guess, overcook.
Have the timer on.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Italian, so you have to say mangia, mangia, mangia.
Well, what I'd like to say is vino, vino, vino.
My father had a phrase memorized. Let's see. Mangia, mangia, fama soma como de lupo. It's like eat, I'm as hungry as a wolf. I think I pronounced it correct.
Mm.
So
Good.